Rain poured over the city the morning Ethan Carter walked into Blackwood Global's headquarters. His suit wasn't expensive. His shoes showed signs of years of careful use. One hand carried a small overnight bag. The other held the hand of his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie. She smiled up at him. "Dad, are you nervous?" He smiled back. "A little. You'll do great." "I hope so." He knelt to straighten her backpack before her school bus arrived across the street. "Remember what we talked about?" She nodded proudly. "Kindness first." He kissed her forehead. "Exactly." After the bus pulled away, Ethan crossed the street and entered the towering glass building. Most people barely noticed him. He looked like another applicant searching for work. "My name is Ethan Carter. I was 39 years old, a widowed single father. 2 years earlier, my wife, Hannah, passed away after a long battle with leukemia. Losing her changed everything. For months I disappeared from public life. Very few people knew where I had gone. That was intentional. The newspapers called me reclusive. Business magazines speculated I had sold everything. The truth was much simpler. I wanted to spend time raising my daughter instead of attending board meetings. Officially, I had resigned from every executive position connected to Blackwood Global. Only 6 people knew one important fact. I had never sold my controlling ownership. Legally, I still owned 51% of the company. Only the board of directors knew. Everyone else, including the recently hired CEO, believed the mysterious founder had permanently stepped away. That misunderstanding was about to become very useful. Inside the lobby, the receptionist smiled politely. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for the chauffeur interview." She looked surprised. "You're applying to be the CEO's driver?" "Yes." She checked the schedule. "Mr. Carter?" "That's me. Please have a seat." Several applicants waited nearby. Most had luxury transportation experience. Some had worked for diplomats. Others had military driving backgrounds. Ethan quietly read a children's storybook while waiting. One applicant laughed. "Studying for kindergarten?" Ethan smiled. "My daughter asked me to finish this before bedtime." The man shrugged. "Whatever." A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened. CEO Victoria Lawson stepped into the lobby. 36 years old. Confident. Brilliant. Known throughout the industry for rescuing struggling corporations. She briefly greeted the applicants before beginning interviews. One by one, candidates entered her office. Most left looking disappointed. Finally, "Mr. Carter?" Ethan walked inside. Victoria glanced at his resume. "I don't understand. You've never worked as a professional chauffeur." "No." "You've managed logistics." "Yes." "You've coordinated international travel." "Yes." "But you've never driven an executive." "No." She leaned back. "So why should I hire you?" He answered honestly. "Because driving isn't just about operating a car. It's about noticing what everyone else misses." She raised an eyebrow. "Such as, you entered through the east elevator instead of the executive entrance." She looked surprised. "The executive garage is temporarily closed. You already knew that? You have fresh concrete dust on your shoes. And your assistant arrived 2 minutes later carrying parking documents." Victoria couldn't hide a small smile. "You observe well. It's a habit." She asked several more questions. Each answer was calm, practical, never boastful. At the end of the interview, she closed the resume. "I think you'll do." 3 days later, Ethan officially became the CEO's personal driver. For weeks, he quietly drove Victoria between meetings. He always arrived early, never complained, never interrupted conversations. But he noticed everything. He learned employees' names, helped security guards carry heavy boxes, opened doors for elderly visitors, even remembered the receptionist's birthday. People naturally trusted him. Victoria gradually found herself talking during long drives, sometimes about business, sometimes about the pressure of leading a multinational company. One afternoon, she sighed heavily. "The board has been acting strangely." Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "How so?" "They keep postponing major decisions. They refuse to approve expansion. They say they're waiting." "For what?" "They won't tell me." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I imagine they have a reason." She laughed. "You sound like you know them." "I know people." A week later, Victoria invited Ethan to accompany her into headquarters after a difficult investor meeting. As they entered the executive elevator, several board members were already waiting inside. The elderly chairman, Richard Bennett, smiled warmly. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." Victoria looked surprised. "You know my driver?" Richard smiled. "We've met." He offered no further explanation. When the elevator reached the top floor, the chairman quietly turned to Ethan. Everything is ready. Victoria frowned. What is? The chairman looked toward the executive boardroom. The ownership meeting. She looked confused. There isn't an ownership meeting scheduled today. Richard simply smiled. There is now. Then he opened the boardroom doors. Every director in the company immediately stood to their feet. Not for the CEO. For the quiet single father who had spent the last month driving her to work. And before Victoria could ask a single question, the chairman spoke words that changed everything. Welcome home, Mr. Carter. Your company has been waiting for you. Victoria stood frozen in the doorway. She looked from the board members to Ethan, convinced she had misunderstood what she had just heard. The elderly chairman, Richard Bennett, walked forward with a warm smile. Welcome back, Mr. Carter. Every director remained standing. No one spoke until Ethan nodded politely. Thank you. Victoria stared at him. What is happening? Richard turned toward her. There is something you were never told when you accepted the position of CEO. He motioned toward the large conference table. Please have a seat. Still confused, Victoria sat down. Ethan quietly took the chair at the head of the table. Not because he demanded it, because it had always been his seat. Richard opened a leather folder containing the company's founding documents. 20 years ago, Blackwood Global was founded by one man. He looked toward Ethan. Mr. Ethan Carter. Victoria's eyes widened. The founder? Richard nodded. And still the majority shareholder. He slid another document across the table. 51% ownership. Victoria slowly read the papers. Every signature was authentic. Every legal seal was valid. She looked back at Ethan. You own this company? I do. Then why? Why have you been driving me every day? Ethan smiled gently. Because I needed to understand the company without anyone treating me differently. He folded his hands on the table. When people know who signs their paycheck, they behave differently. I wanted to see the truth. The room remained quiet. Victoria remembered every conversation they had shared in the car, every complaint she had made, every opinion she had expressed. She lowered her eyes. I judged you by your job. Ethan shook his head. You treated me fairly. You simply believed I was someone else. Richard stood again. For the past month, Mr. Carter has visited every department. He spoke with receptionists, security guards, maintenance staff, engineers, drivers. He learned more about this company in 4 weeks than most executives learn in 4 years. One director added. He personally reviewed more than 800 employee suggestions. Victoria looked surprised. You've been working the entire time. Ethan smiled. Just differently. He stood and walked toward the large windows overlooking the city. When Hannah died, I stopped thinking about profit. My daughter needed a father. So I stepped away. I left daily operations in the board's hands. But recently, I realized something. He turned back toward the room. A company isn't buildings. It isn't stock prices. It's people. If I wanted to know whether we'd lost our way, I couldn't walk in as the owner. I had to arrive as someone nobody noticed. Victoria quietly asked, what did you discover? Ethan didn't answer immediately. Finally, he smiled. I discovered something encouraging. The people are extraordinary. They care. They work harder than anyone realizes. But many believe their voices don't matter. He looked around the table. That changes today. The board unanimously approved a new initiative. Every employee would have a direct path to submit ideas and concerns. Managers would spend 1 day each month working alongside frontline staff. Executives would rotate through different departments instead of remaining isolated in corporate offices. The program became known as the driver's perspective, because sometimes the clearest view of a company comes from the person quietly watching everything happen. After the meeting ended, Victoria found Ethan in the executive parking garage. He was cleaning the same black sedan he had driven every morning. She laughed softly. You still don't have to do that. He smiled. I know. I just like finishing what I start. She stood beside him. I owe you an apology. For what? I assumed success always looked expensive. You reminded me it often looks ordinary. Ethan closed the car door. My wife used to tell me something. What? Character reveals itself most clearly when nobody thinks you're important. Victoria smiled. She sounds wise. She was. Months later, Blackwood Global became one of the highest-rated employers in the country. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Innovation increased. Productivity reached record levels. Business magazines praised the company's remarkable cultural transformation. Journalists constantly asked Ethan what inspired such dramatic change. His answer never varied. I spent a month being invisible. I learned that the people closest to the work usually understand the problems best. One Friday afternoon, Ethan left the office earlier than usual. Not for an investor meeting. Not for a board conference. He drove straight to Sophie's elementary school. Parents lined the auditorium waiting for the annual talent show. When Sophie spotted him in the audience, her entire face lit up. "You came. I promised I would." She hugged him tightly. Later that evening, after the applause faded and the trophies were handed out, Sophie slipped her small hand into his. "Dad, yes. Are you the boss at work?" He smiled. "A little." She giggled. "I think you're better at being my dad." He laughed. "I agree." Years later, a bronze plaque was placed inside Blackwood Global's headquarters. It didn't list financial achievements or record profits. Instead, it carried a simple message written by Ethan himself. Never judge someone's value by the title on their name badge. The person opening your car door today may be the one who opened the company itself years ago. Employees walked past those words every morning. Some smiled. Some paused to read them again. But everyone remembered the lesson. Respect should never depend on status. Because true leadership isn't proven by the chair you sit in. It's revealed by how you treat people when you believe they have nothing to offer you.